The real work of social is not in content creation, which is effortful and hard, but it's actually in the work to make sure that the community around you is already there.
Hey guys, today on the Way podcast with Alec Hanson from LoanDepot is going to be a good one. I got to warn you up front, it's a little long, but reason why is because, man, there was some just great conversation going on with them. We got everything from what LoanDepot is doing in the AI world and where it's heading to, if he had to start over on day one, how he was going to do it. And I just love the webinar concept. I love the stalking on social media appropriately, but not creepy. And I love just, one of the books he suggested was Who Moved the Cheese? So I think if you just sit through all of this, you're going to find that you can get some real nuggets out of this show and actionable nuggets too, not just like some pie in the sky type stuff that you hear all the time, but things that you can do immediately, all the way down to 100 videos in 100 days, which is what he did. And in his own words, it sucked ass, but it's okay because it opened up a lot of doors. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Hey, this is Dino with The Way, and we are here to empower, equip, and educate loan officers from the very best in the business. And today I'm super excited because I have an old timer, an old friend of mine, Alec Hanson, and he moved over to the dark side because when I knew him, he was in the broker space. He was at Countrywide. He was a big dog over there, and now he's a big dog with LoanDepot. Alec, welcome to the show.
What's up, man, dude? Thanks for bringing me on, man. I've been watching your podcast for a while now, and it's really cool to hang with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so stoked because we saw each other at that trade show, and it was like, man, I haven't seen him forever. I didn't even know if you recognized me still. I mean, I know you have a little less hair, but I also have a lot of gray hair now. And
don't talk about it. Yeah, it's real, man.
So, dude, let's get down to it. I like to ask the question this way: who are you today? Right? Like both personally and professionally. Give us like who you are. And then I want to go back to day one and then walk through your entire, journey back to today.
Yeah, man, who I am today. A middle-aged 24-year mortgage veteran trying to make an impact in the industry. It's pretty wild coming as on my career path, which we'll talk about. But right now in my current role, I get to help strategically drive revenue for LoanDepot, which is a lot of different partnerships, a lot of different strategic initiatives. I'm helping drive a lot of growth on our retail channel and recruiting and supporting that group. And it's a ton of fun to be doing what I'm doing today. I just finished 2 years as the chief marketing officer for LoanDepot, which was really fulfilling and awesome. I knew that I could come in there when I was asked to take that on and make an impact. So now I get back to be on the revenue side of the house, working with our president, Jeff Walsh, and it's a lot of fun. No pressure. Like we don't need revenue right now in this market, but a lot of fun.
So I gotta laugh a little and tell the truth, right? Like over the last few years, every time I see you on social media, I'm like, dude, this guy's got a pretty good gig. I think he's getting paid pretty good money, and all he does is go on like social media and go on rants and talk about stuff. And I'm like, is that really like he nailed it? He's not even dealing with all the crap anymore of the loan business. He's just having fun. So,
Bro,
I don't know.
I have a great story about that. So 7 years ago, when I decided to take content and social media seriously, I did it for a couple reasons, but the primary reason was I was running the Western United States as a divisional. I had a lot of regionals and branch managers and a lot of loan officers, and we were doing a lot of production. And I felt really strong and confident in what I'll call like traditional relationship sales. How to build business with realtors, how to build business with builders, how to leverage your past clients, how to build your database as an annuity. I felt like I was really strong in those areas because I had originated for 8 years, run a branch. I think I had 100 loan officers in my branch. It was the biggest it was before I became so I had a lot of skill set that I felt made me a good leader and coach because I walked in everyone's shoes. Yeah. And then 7 years ago, this whole I was looking at the digital world. I was looking at social media. I was looking at, the podcasting world was exploding. And I was like, oh my God, I have no clue what's happening in that space, let alone how to even originate or make that like a vertical for like prospecting. I had no idea. So I'm like, well, I can't be a great leader if I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Cause I really believed, like you've come on your own journey, that like you have to find a strategy in this space. You have to figure out how to show up and build brand and build recognition, get connection to all these things. And so I was like, well, then hell, if I'm going to tell people to do it, I'm just going to do it. And so I did 100 videos in 100 days, like a crazy person, to see if I can
Wow.
actually commit to doing videos on a regular basis. They were terrible. They're still on my YouTube page, but they're terrible. I was self-editing. As soon as that was done, I was like, well, I got to try this podcast thing. And I started the Model Editing podcast, and I started to bring on guests and do that thing. And then I got serious about content as a strategy, and I figured my own way forward. And so, yeah, people would go like, well, why are you putting all this content out, Alec? Like, you're not originating. Like, what's the point? And a couple things. It made me a way better leader and coach, because then I would walk in the walk. It also got me really connected in the industry more than I was before, which was fascinating to me. It introduced me to great leaders that I might want to recruit or learn from. I met great people like Rene Rodriguez and others, like thought leaders that have poured into me over the years, or I've learned from their content. Like Neil Dingra and these guys that have gone on to do these crazy things that I didn't have a clue who they were before. And then, part of my job as a divisional, was to find talent and attract that talent to the company and see if we were the right fit. Well, cold calling sucks ass. And I know you get recruited like a madman. The industry is just sick of it. And so I realized, though, that by doing this content strategy, it gave me a backdoor into real relationships where I was able to meet people that I didn't have to cold call, that I didn't have to, harass, and then have real conversations about, what's going on with their life and business. And it just made that whole like attracting talent thing like way easier. And so, well, if it's checking those boxes for me as an originator, it's going to check all those boxes for them. It's going to open up new relationships with realtors. And so, yeah, I turned into the video guy, which is probably why I was the chief marketing officer at some point. I made videos on the internet. So, it's amazing how these things can transform a career.
Yeah, man, I love that. So, years ago, I had a radio show called Money
I,
Matters with Dino, right? And I started with that, and that was before podcasting even really
yeah,
existed,
I
right?
remember
And
this,
and then
dude.
it turned into a podcast, and I got to say that it was so much work in the beginning. Like
Yeah.
a lot of brain power, just thinking about it, worrying about it, trying to figure it all out. After that, it just kind of started becoming super easy, and you can't learn any of that without just doing it. So,
That's so true,
hun-
bro.
100 videos in 100 days. I mean, who cares if they suck ass? Because that stepping stone is what got you to where you're at. And I love
100%.
that. So just right out of the gate, before we even started hitting all these milestones, right? For anybody listening, it's that. Stop worrying if you suck ass. Just go do it. Go get it
Well, and you're
done.
gonna suck.
Yeah, I
You're gonna
mean,
suck. Like, of course you are. Like, my first business meeting with a realtor was terrible. Oh my God, terrible. I walked in there clueless, wasn't even prepared, got asked questions I didn't have the answer for. I felt like an idiot. Like, it was not good.
yeah. So now let's just go back, because
Yeah.
I want to get more to this, because this is where it's at right now, and I know you have a lot to share with people there. But just for the sake of keeping the whole like show kind of the
Yeah, let's do
way
it.
it flows, I want to know how. And I know the story, but tell everybody how, why, and where did you get into the mortgage business?
I asked my dad for a job when I was in college, and I got to go to Countrywide and ship loan files once a week in downtown Oakland. Shipping loan files, baby, once a week. And then I worked a summer job sitting a builder. Actually, no, it's even funnier. I was going to stay up at college over the summer and get a job and hang out with my buddies at the fraternity and all that stuff. So I got a job as a processor 3 in a regional operations center, which meant I ordered appraisals. And we had paper files. And I sat next to Milton from The Office, like no joke. And I get a file, and then it was a DOS-based system. So I had to tab through the screens,
Nice.
and then
Yep.
don't tab too fast, because you go by the appraisal field and then you have to go back. And then I would put in the credit card and then like hit enter and like put in the date it's due and hit enter and then like put the file over here. And literally about a week and a half of that, I was going to burn the building down. I was like, this is repetitive. I can't handle it. ADD is going nuts. I remember there was a sales floor on the first floor, a sales shop. And I walked down, and it was a builder branch. And it happened to be all women, which is a different story. But it was wild, because I walked in there and they go, hey, I work upstairs as a processor 3. It's a summer job. I will do anything. What do you need? Like, what do you need down here? Like,
So
get
you're
me
a
out.
college guy walking into a room full of women, and you're like, this is
Just
paradise.
saying.
It just made
I had
it.
hair. It was a whole new game. They were like, well, we need help on the weekends. I'm like, look, I don't think you know what I'm doing. I'm ordering appraisals. Like I don't care. Everything's a weekend for me. And it's summer. I don't care. So I sat at a new construction build site. It was houses that were previous naval houses converted into condominiums in Vallejo in Northern California. And I sat there and I took apps. And then I'd come in Monday with all the apps from the builders. I took a full 1003. Didn't know what the hell any of the boxes meant. Just asked the questions. Learned as I went. Took the apps into the team, handed them to the people they told me to hand them to, and then just helped them put a file together, whatever they needed for the rest of the day. And then I would go home. And so I graduated, moved back to Southern California, and I started officially for Kevin Buddy, the freaking legend in lending in SoCal. I was a receptionist. They called it an internal loan consultant. I sat on the corner of Michelson and Whole Foods, next to the Whole Foods in a strip mall, and I got $90 a loan doing HELOCs, and that's when I was started into lending.
Kevin Buddy,
My man, changed my
dude,
life.
that
Kevin Buddy
guy's
did. The guy's
he's
crazy,
still
man.
working.
He's still crushing heads. Yeah, dude, guys. Yeah, I got a lot of stories with Kevin, but I literally used to sit in Kevin's office, listen to him talk to clients, and listen to him give advice. And then I eventually, when I became his assistant after 6 months as the receptionist, I'd help him put his files together, follow up with his clients, work with his processor and underwriter, and help him close deals for another 6 months before I went off on my own. But I learned an absolute ton sitting in Kevin's office as he talked on his little flip phone with his white yellow pad and doing loans.
So now let's go to you making that next step, right? You learned from one of the best guys in the business. You pushed paper like crazy. You went in, and I love this piece too, just for everybody listening. Like sometimes you're in a situation where you're unhappy and you just sit there and take it, or you complain, or maybe you go look for another job, but you know what? Or maybe you just walk to another floor and say, I want in right here. Right.
Yeah,
Like
get me in.
If he didn't do that, if he didn't take that risk, nothing would have happened, right? Like you have to take risks in this business if you want to succeed. If you don't, then maybe you're just in the wrong business. So anyway, so now you're off on your own.
Well, kinda. It's interesting. So Kevin's office was, geographically, for anyone that cares, Kevin's office was in Mission Viejo in Orange County. And I was living in Irvine, and I wanted to originate in the like Newport Beach, Costa Mesa markets where Kevin Buddy wasn't. That was my whole thing, was like, I don't want to be competing against him. I'd rather just go out and try my own. And so I was driving up to Newport and Costa Mesa to try to find the realtors there. And then an office opened up. And so I told Kevin that I'm going to go work at that office if they'll take me. And I went over and joined an office in Fashion Island. And everyone there were superstars. I mean, unbelievable originators.
Which one was it?
This is David Kravitz and Jay Kunkel ran this office for years for Countrywide.
Yeah.
And I walked in there, and these guys were closing 10 mil a month. And this is like 2003 or no, 2004 almost. And I was like, holy crap, these guys are amazing. But I had my playbook. I knew exactly how to go get Kevin wrote out for me what to do. And simplistically, Thursdays was broker preview in Newport. Fridays was Costa Mesa. I'd go see 6 to 8 open houses or broker preview opens on Thursday and Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, I do the same thing on the weekends at open houses. I had my target list of the top 100 agents. I put it all on a monthly mailer that I made and sent out. And I just pounded the pavement. And my first year in 2004, originating on my own, I did $85 million just beating my head against open houses, which is wild because, you know this, like I tell people, there was no social media. Yeah, the market was a little easier. I understand. Like there was inventory, rates were good, in the 5s and 6s. But I was unrelenting, and I didn't have the constraints that people face in some other parts. I wasn't married yet. I didn't have kids, so I just pushed and really I launched myself because I watched these other people doing it. I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do something, and just really bust my ass for those first, and then for 8 years, I originated pretty heavily before I got into management.
Yeah. So I got to tell a quick story. I was asked to motivate and teach a young group of realtors about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago. And they were all like these guys in their 20s.
Love it.
And I'm sitting there talking to them. I did some role playing, and one of them kept saying, he'd ask me a question, I answer, he'd say, perfect. He asked me another question, I answer, perfect. after about 7 perfects, I'm like, listen, I go, I don't know why you keep saying perfect. You asked me if I have a dog. I said yes. You said perfect. So first off, like you got to stop doing that, right? And then I went into this rant, and I'm looking at them, and they were all like glazy eyes, and I was like, "Ugh, I got to relate to them. How am I going to relate to them? And I said, all right, you guys all single? Yeah. Okay, so imagine when you go out to a bar and you're trying to pick up girls. And then I went into this whole story about how you got to posture, right? Like you got to, first of all, when you show up, when you first walk through the door, you got to just have that posture. And then you can't be afraid. If you don't go talk to them, you're never going to do it, right? So you telling me that story of
Mm.
of you beating your head in because for the realtors and all, it's kind of like picking up girls. And all of these guys had no idea what I was talking about. And then it dawned on me that this is just a
So
brand new
funny.
generation where they swipe. They don't
It's
have to have risk of any kind. They just swipe. Like we
wild.
had to work hard at it, and we had to build up thick skin. And that's how you become successful at going out and building a a mortgage empire. I mean, my gosh, you have to go out and ask. So I love that story.
I do have a nuance to it that I think that for somebody might find it helpful. So, part of my backstory was, I was heavily bullied growing up, and I came up with a lot of insecurity and a lot of like fear of rejection and a lot of stuff that I still am not. I don't think you're ever cured from. You just learn how to live with it almost. And I remember being so terrified that a realtor would tell me to f off, tell me to never come in there, challenge me for being so young. I was 23. What the hell do I know? Or whatever they were going to do. So that I couldn't cold call any of them, because I couldn't do it. I was too terrified of it. And I've watched loan officers that have to deal with that who are stronger than me, but I couldn't do it. So I would go to open houses and walk in, but I wouldn't sell anything. And because I had this rational thing in my head saying, well, if you don't sell anything, they're never going to say no. If you don't ask for anything, they can't say no. They can't reject you. And so I'd go in there and I would just introduce myself and I'd ask them, how the open house is going or how it's going. And obviously say I was a lender because one time I didn't do that and they like started touring me like I was a buyer. And then I,
Yeah.
I got a full tour like a buyer. And I'm like, well, I screwed that up. So I had to tell them I'm a lender. And I did have to deal with people's face changes. Like, I'm a lender. They're like, oh, yeah, you have to deal with that. But what happened over time by hacking it this way was people got to know me and they got to know my work ethic and they got to know me showing up again. And sometimes they didn't want to have small talk, and I respect that. I bounced, but they started to. I became not a threat and not a huge inconvenience, because if they had someone walk in, I would dip out. I wasn't like coming after them. And then 6 months almost to the day, I started to have people that would actually talk to me when I'd come in. Oh, Alec, hey, good to see you, man. How's the market? What's going on? Fill me in. They weren't giving me deals, but they weren't treating me like a pariah. And eventually that turned into the ability for me to ask for permission to call, which was like, hey, if I ever have something that might help you or a product or something that's new, could I ever call you and share it? I don't want to bug you. And they'd be like, yeah, of course, Alec, you can call me. And it was an interesting way for me to deal with my own BS and my own insecurities, because I knew, like all of us know, I got to get relationships with these people or I'm never going to get a deal. I
That's
have
right.
to figure this out.
Yeah.
But that worked for me, and I had the time and the patience to execute that strategy. But it made it palatable for my own shortcomings to
Yeah.
figure out how to patch around those to get the result I want, which was long-term relationships that could send me business.
So that's so interesting. I never would have pegged you as a guy that was insecure. I would
Yeah,
have thought that you would have just ran to it.
I remember walking in one day and seeing a title rep like corner a realtor and be like, "So why don't you use me for title?" And I was horrified. I was like, "Oh my god, how could you even ask that question of somebody?" Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And I like ran away.
Well, okay. So what'd you say? 75 million your first year.
85.
85. Okay.
Yeah, gotta get that extra
Stand
10
to
in
be
there.
corrected. that's that's a huge number in those years, right? I mean, even though
Yeah,
Newport was expensive, it
yeah.
wasn't. I mean, that's a big number.
Yeah, I think it was like 135 loans if I remember correctly. So it was some bigger loans. It wasn't 85 loans for 85 million, but it was still. And look, by the way, why did I go to Why did I go to Newport instead of Mission Viejo? Because I wanted bigger loan amounts.
Yeah.
Like that's why I did that. Like I could have worked in any market. I know people today that prefer first-time homebuyer markets over jumbo markets, and I respect that. I get it. It's hard. Jumbo is a lot different now than it was in 2004.
Yeah. I mean, look, when I first started, it was very specifically, it wasn't even Newport. It was specifically Fashion Island. That's exactly where I wanted to be. And for
Yeah,
the exact same reason.
we had the same thought, dude.
Yeah. Um, so here's a question I have for you, especially being a young guy with that much volume, there has to be a system.
Yes,
Otherwise, you're working 24 hours a day, which you probably
yes,
did, but that's not good enough to maintain, a good balance of any kind or even a good execution
yes.
on your way of doing business without a system. Were you even bright enough to be able to put a system together? Was it just fly by the seat of your pants, or did you piggyback off of like what Jay Kunkel had put together?
Yeah. I had a couple advantages. So the first was for, um, a year and a half, I sat and watched Kevin Buddy's systems do massive numbers. And then I was part of his systems where I was actually his first PA. It's funny. I was the first production assistant he's ever hired. And when I said, I want to be your PA, Kevin, he goes, I don't need a PA. I have my processor. Like that's verbatim what he told me. And it was
Yeah.
hysterical. So I watched his systems. And then the second thing that really, I call it standing on the shoulders of giants. And it's still such a powerful tool today. I encourage people to do it all the time. I called up and emailed the top 20 mortgage guys at Countrywide that I saw doing huge numbers that were on all the annual, like the monthly, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, hey, can I come up and get a cup of coffee with you? Can I get on a phone call with you? Would you tell me what you do to be successful? I'm just dying to know, how do you do this? What are your systems? What are your strategies? What do you market? And so many of them said yes. It was insane. And they just, like, I remember I drove up to Diana McFarland in Santa Barbara, and she just told me everything she does. And it was wild because she had a line of people in her office. I'd never seen anyone like this, who had she had like 4 people lined up, and they just come in for a nap and then leave. And then the next couple would come in. I was like, I've never
No
seen anything like
way.
this in my life. But they just told me what they did, and they gave me hints and tips, and then I put that all together. But the one thing that really catapulted me in the first year was I went to Dave and Jay and I said, I need to hire an assistant. And they go, Alec, you're doing like 5 loans or 4 loans a month. Like, you don't need an assistant, bro. And I was like, no, I need an assistant. I will pay for it myself.
Yeah.
Just let me do it. And they did. And I did pay for it myself out of my commissions in the beginning. And but I knew, and this is the other thing too, I'm going to say without sounding like a total arrogant asshole. But I've coached enough loan officers now and been in the game long enough that you'll know the same thing. The amount of loan officers that actually work a full 8-hour day are very few and far between.
Yeah.
And that's not to shit on people who don't, because it's a lot of high pressure in this job. Maybe it's already providing the lifestyle you want, so you don't feel the need to work 8 to 5 because you got balance in your life or you got kids. So I'm not calling anyone out, but I just know that that's not happening. The amount of loan officers in this industry that actually show up at 8:15 and work to 5:15 and try to fill their day with origination activities and pipeline management and systems are not, there's not that many of them, man. I mean, and you probably know this from your experience. So
Yeah.
I'm trying not to give myself too much credit, like I'm such a genius. I just think I worked a lot harder than a lot of people were working
Yeah.
because I had a lot of ground to cover for what I wanted to accomplish. So
Yeah.
I say that as more like encouragement that it's possible
Yeah.
if you're willing to put the effort and time in. Because people gave me their systems, they gave me their ideas. I mean, how much of the game is execution, brother?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I heard a few things that I'm just going to kind of pull out so somebody can not skip through it. Number one, you were told you don't do enough volume to hire an assistant. And you said, I don't care. I'll pay for it myself. That, to me, I actually love telling people they can't do something, because if they believe it, I know they're never going to achieve it anyway.
Yeah.
And if they don't believe it and they just drive harder and they say, well, I'm going to do it anyway, that to me says they already have the mindset that's necessary. And it's super important, because without the mindset, you're never going to get there. And then the drive. So, all right, I will say, in my older age, I am stepping back a little and talking about work-life balance, because I didn't have any for a very long time.
I feel you, dude. I
And
feel you.
and I got divorced, and a lot of things happened that shouldn't have happened. And man, if I could take it all back, I would. I wish I could do certain things better, right? So I'm trying to teach that to the younger generation now. But
Yep.
at the end of the day, you are in an environment that you have to work. I mean, this isn't one of those, you can do it on the beach type of thing. God bless you if you can, but if you really want true success, you have to put your foot on the gas, and then you have to create systems. Otherwise, you
Yes.
will run out of gas.
Yes.
Without the systems in place, you will never get any further than what you're personally capable of working in 10, 12, 14 hours, right? Whatever that might be. So systems are everything. And the thing that I heard you say that I absolutely loved, and I did the same thing. In fact, I just did it last year. So you're never too old to do it. Is you went and asked other successful people
Yeah.
that you wanted to learn from. And what did
Yeah.
they say? They said yes.
Yes. It's crazy. It's crazy
Most
amount of people
successful
that said yes.
people are happy to tell somebody that wants to learn. I remember we call it our always present program, which is my gifting campaign. And
Yeah.
personally, I feel like it's the absolute best in the whole industry. And people ask me what it is, and I tell them. And I remember one time somebody said, "Why do you tell everybody like all of it?" I'm like, "Because they're never going to do it anyway." It's true.
It is true, man. Execution is 90% of the game, 99% of the game, because the best ideas, the best tactics, the best strategies, without anyone's ability to try and
Yeah.
they don't win. They don't happen.
Okay, so let's get past year one, because even though that number was fantastic, what
Yeah.
did year two look like? And did you ever have any moments where you just got too ahead of yourself?
You know, I don't know. I remember that I went up every year. So I think my next year was like 135 million or something like that. And then I my best year ever was 185 million. And so, but I scaled up to have two assistants, and then at one point I had a junior loan officer who wanted to become like kind of the path I went on, right? Who sat behind me and learned all that stuff. But I really had two people running the production side of the house up next to my processors and underwriters. Um,
And were you
and
good? Were you good at becoming a manager?
that's an interesting question. Um, I was really good at delegating early, and I know a lot of super originators that struggle with delegating because of lack of trust and the ability for them to do it better and the fear that you have when handing something off. I didn't have that fear. I was like, I had the initial conversation with the client, built rapport, assessed their needs, identified the product, went through pricing, and answered any questions they had, and then I I was done. Now, if my team screwed up, I would be back because we had 8:30 a.m. pipeline review every morning. And so if there was something off the rails, I was back putting it on the rails. But they knew that my time was spent with clients and getting new relationships. And if I can maximize that, then the rest of it, does its job. And so, um, but it was funny. I decided when I decided to get into leadership and shift entirely and start to build a sales team and wanted to become a sales manager and build a team. Um, I was definitely not optimized as a leader. Well, first of all, I was young in my mid-20s, so who wants to work for that guy? Which so I got who I attracted who I could attract. Because I wasn't that strong of a leader. So, no one was gonna. So I got people that were newer in their career. I got people that were looking for something, some kind of another young person that they could kind of relate to. That's kind of who I got. And I'm sure looking back, they were kind of like Alec was kind of a bonehead. He expected me to do things I couldn't do. Um, but it's funny, you work hard enough at something and you care enough personally about something, you have to improve if you're putting the reps in.
Yeah.
And so that's where I experienced my career as I started to become a better, more empathetic, more capable leader and coach. I started to learn what was working or not working for certain people, and I was able to start attracting more and more talent. Even though I was younger at the time than a lot of the people that I was attracting. And then at some point, you kind of, it's going to sound arrogant again, but you kind of feel like you feel comfortable. I got more comfortable in my own skin. So if someone didn't want to work for me, I didn't take it personally. I just maybe wasn't the right fit or didn't feel like they I had enough value to give them, and I'd have to work on that.
Yeah. What do you think drove you so hard? Because you're young at that stage.
Yeah.
You're still in your mid-20s, right?
Well, I had some, so I've gone through a lot of personal work on that stuff, so I'll share some thoughts. When you coming up bullied and insecure and feeling not enough, one of my mechanisms was I overachieved. I got a 4 point whatever. I played sports, and so I would practice like insanely to get to maintain, a good level of sports. And I started to wrap my identity in. I'm a high performer. I'm a high achiever. When you're young, you start getting, identity put on you from different things. And so, plus I remember I came home with like a C one day early on in like elementary school. And my mom was like, "You're not a C player. Like you're an A player." And I was like, "I am? Like, I guess I must be." So, I kind of wrapped myself in that identity. And then as I became more confident and I got more self assured, and I started to deal with my own insecurities and try to really think through like, what do I care about? Like, do I really care about this, or you know, um, I got a little more acceptance around that I am a pretty driven person. That I do find a lot of value in performing at a high level. And but underneath that, what really changed my career forever was I started to identify key areas that really spoke into my like soul, into the little kid inside me. And
Yeah.
one of those things, which is why I pivoted out of production into leadership, and stopped originating entirely in 2008, um, was because I watched my dad and some of the senior leaders at Countrywide on our awards trip that I was so driven to go to get the award, right? Got to get the award. And I watched them handing out the awards, and I was like, "Holy shit!" They they're validating the greatness in other people. Like they're the anti-bully. They're telling people how good they are and how worthy they are and how worthy they are of achieving this and how proud they are of them and how much they admire them. And I was like, that started to mean more to me as a human than getting the award. And it transformed how I viewed the world, and my value set shifted. And I was like, I want to be the person, the anti-bully. I want to be the person that sees somebody and is like, "No, you're great. You have greatness in you, and I want to validate it in you. I want to see it in you. I want to call it out in you." And it pivoted my path. I'm still kind of a maniac in terms of like, if we play pickleball, I'm gonna fucking win. Like I'm a psycho still, but like I know where that comes from, and I'm able to curb it a little bit, or be like, "Hey, this is like co-ed with wives. Like maybe stop smashing the ball." But
You,
from
you
a
know what's
from a
funny
professional
is
perspective, I get a
real
lot more
quick.
value
I
now.
gotta tell you something funny.
Give it to me.
Ryan Grant texted me this morning and said, "Do you play pickleball?" And my response was, "You're probably too aggressive for me, too competitive for me."
Ryan's another super competitive dude. Yeah.
So sorry.
So
Go
that
ahead.
that just, the long story short is that became more spiritually fulfilling for a career, and I gave up some of the accolades. I gave up, being the guy getting the award, and I started to pour into other people,
Yeah.
which is a whole other freaking challenge. I still look back, and my favorite job of all time was being a branch manager and helping my team get loans on a daily basis, because it felt so just like it was our team, our culture, and we could do it our way. But it's what steered my career in a different path to like really, mentor and coach and lead other people. It became very fulfilling for me.
So I'm curious. Did you? I don't know how to ask this question. I'm the type of person that I'm always seeking ways to get better. And like when it comes to reading books, I'm reading books that teach me something. Were you? And I was like that from a young age.
Yeah,
My dad instilled it in me. Were you like that? Did you? Because like you have to learn this stuff from somewhere. And I also did a lot of coaching over the years. Um,
yeah,
you know, and truly believe it. And I feel like if little kids could have any kind of a gift from a parent, it would be coaching, right?
yeah.
Even if it's not you.
100%. I read everything I could read. You already knew I would continually talk to top performers that I respected. That wasn't a one time thing. That became a always thing. You know, I like I mentioned Renee Rodriguez. So in 2020, when we were all in our garages, trying to do videos and talk to each other and do loans and all the insanity. I found Renee, like we bumped into each other digitally. I saw him on the internet. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And so we ended up just like connecting and networking. And we didn't meet face to face for like 2 years till like one of his events. And I'm like, hey, this is the first time we ever got to hug. He's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, we've never. He's like, I thought, but like when I saw things he was doing, I was like, what are you doing? Like, how do I learn from this? Like,
Yeah.
and so I think that I kind of call it being a student of your own experience. If you're just constantly learning and constantly wondering and constantly trying to figure out and being excited and curious what other people are doing and how they're doing it, I think we can just you got to stay on a learning path your whole life or we're doomed.
Yeah.
That's why I get, because I speak with a lot of confidence and I make declarative statements and I say things on the internet that I believe are true. People think I figured things out and they're like, oh, he must know what he's talking about. And I have to keep
Yeah.
going back and being like, absolutely not. Like I am a practitioner, so I have practical experience, but I'm figuring this out the same way you are. I mean, the world's changing. AI is rolling over us, and many of us don't have a clue what that means. I mean, it's so the world's always changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a hard time in your career?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean,
I mean, like a really hard time, not just the rates went up a little bit or something like that.
well, so I'll share. In I bought my first home at the peak of the market in 2006, and I had sold my condo, gotten married, bought this home in 2006, right before the crash. And I didn't have 1,700 properties. I'm a pretty conservative guy. I didn't have my money in a lot of risky places. But like many originators, my whole business was decimated in the
Yeah.
crisis. Countrywide collapsed. We were acquired by Bank of America in a forced merger. Um, all of the business around me evaporated. Products that my whole team was selling disappeared overnight. Um, my house cratered in volume, I mean, in value. And I look at this and I was like, I'm starting over. Now my team was still there. My loan officer, we was on a team, but they were starting over. And it was a gutsy moment for everybody. I mean, for a while there, I could tell you too, like, in the pure drama of the countrywide age when the crisis was happening, it's like, are our loans going to fund? Are we gonna just have our lines turned off? Um, man, that was a really rough time, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for anybody that's been in long enough, nothing probably ever beats that as far as the hardest time.
Yeah.
I do remember two moments in particular. One was, it got so bad, and I was like, "Am I gonna have to figure out, like, do I have to do something else?"
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
started thinking through it a little bit, and I was like, "Gosh, everybody I'm doing loans for doesn't even make $100,000." So I mean, I'm still making close to that in the worst of the worst without any business. So I was like, all right, that's off the table. And then I realized I heard of these guys in the Inland Empire that were just crushing it on FHA loans. And in Newport, I had never done an FHA loan before. I didn't even know
I'm
how
with
to
you.
do one. I was scared of them,
Yep.
even though they're like no big deal, right?
Yep.
And then it dawned on me that it doesn't matter what the market's doing, somebody's always crushing it.
Yep.
There's always somebody that's crushing it. So just be that guy. That's what I told myself. Like, be that guy. Had that talk with myself, and then I just started in again. That was one, because when it comes to hard times, like, man, I the emotion sometimes still comes back,
Yep.
and I said it earlier. I had gotten divorced and I had two little girls, and I remember it was Christmas, and we had, everybody was coming to me asking for advances. And I'm like, I don't
Bro.
got the money, you know? And then it was Christmas Eve, and the one guy's deal funded. And, we were still waiting to collect the check, but I had the money. So I gave it to him because it was Christmas Eve. And and I was waiting because I was supposed to be getting that check and I was going to run to the bank to go put it in.
Oh,
And,
no.
and I never got it, like ever.
Oh,
He told
ever.
me he's just not going to pay me. And I was Christmas Eve, and I remember I ran to Target to buy my daughters their Christmas present, and I had like 17 bucks left in the bank. And I just like put my head down on my desk and started crying. That was the first time. And it was like, man, it's bad,
Yeah.
and yet you don't want to let your little girls down, but gosh, dude, those were such hard times. And I mean,
Yeah.
my belief in God carries me through a lot. Um, but it also, I believe, like the struggle does strengthen, and if you persevere through that, you become a much better man.
Yeah.
And you said something to it earlier too. You stop caring about your accolades, your accomplishments and all your stuff, and you started caring more about other people. And I think that's where true maturity comes in, and wanting to help other people. And when you do that, when you finally achieve that, your purpose becomes so much greater.
You know, when I had first graduated college, I went to UC Berkeley. It's a decent school, and I came back to Southern California, and I had a huge chip on my shoulder. I graduated with like a 4.3. I got a good SAT score. We did great in basketball and volleyball. I played volleyball up at Cal. I went to a good school. I was destined for greatness, right? And I get sucked into the mortgage industry just because I didn't want to I didn't have an aspiration to be the president or a firefighter or, astronaut. So I just was doing some mortgages. And then I remember prospecting realtors and being so arrogant. I mean, like these freaking idiots. These people are dumber than me. This is my level of arrogance.
Yeah.
They're making hand over fist, they're making way too much for a real estate deal. That's before I knew what they had to do to get a deal. But like, in my arrogance, and I was like, and I gotta bend the knee to these people. I gotta freaking grovel. You're like, do they know? Like, this is unbelievable. Um, but I also saw the upside of what some of these big loan officers were doing, and I'm like, wow, this is a pretty incredible earning opportunity if you're competent. So I go to my dad, who'd been in the industry a long time, and I was like, Dad, it doesn't make any sense. And he's like, let me tell you something that it stuck with me forever. He's like, there's a river of this money in this world, and it's flowing down. It's a river of money, and to get to it, you have to bend the knee. You can't walk up to it. And the way he described it to me, because we have a huge faith background, I was raised in the church, and I have faith is still very important to me too. He said, you have to serve somebody in this world. You're never going to be the master. So figure out who you're going to serve and then go be the best you can. And, you know, in a faith-based perspective, right, that, we have to bend our knee to the Lord, and that's kind of how that works. And then, but in the professional world, it really made a lot of sense. And as soon as I lowered my ego and lowered myself and realized that I need to be in service to others, and that's my pathway to this river of money, then I'll get some of it if I can really just get down there. It really gave me perspective to go attack this career differently. And by serving other people, and you've seen it too, because real loan officers that stay in this business a long time, they only do it because they deeply connect to the service aspect of this business. The help you give other people is significant and life changing, and that's what kept me going.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. All right. So let's get past all this now. Let's start moving towards, who you are again today. And, you put a lot of content out there.
Yeah,
First, tell everybody how they can find you.
yeah.
And I will have it all in the notes as well. But, I want to know what drives you now to do as much as you do, because you put yourself out there a lot.
Yeah. Um, it's funny that you asked that question because one of my content strategies right now is to go live on Tuesdays in the morning and share something that I think is relevant and timely. And today was on how to not build a toxic personal brand. That was my topic for today. But the punchline of that is, um, in order to be have a brand in order to produce content that matters. My personal belief is that you have to make content that serves somebody out there, and that's you can see the theme just keeps running through everything. I used to have a little sticker underneath my camera that said, "Remember why you're making this video," because the second that we see people's content become about themselves is the second they go down the wrong path and start alienating people instead of attracting people. And so I really believe that number one, my content strategy, I've watched it open up doors for me professionally that I never thought would happen. Relationships, conversations, it's been unbelievable how it's helped my personal career. So if I can inspire somebody else to pick a new strategy up, try something out, learn a new tactic, obviously I would love my team to do that. Like I love my company to figure that, right? But at the same time, if our industry figures it out, the better for everybody. Because I'm a really big abundance over scarcity guy. Like I think that's got to maintain a true core, or else how do you survive the world? So I really try to make content that I believe will help somebody who's dealing with their own insecurity, their own fear of these platforms, their own misunderstanding of them. Maybe right now they're feeling like their business is eroding because the market is against them and the scarcity is getting scary. And so I get a lot of personal goodwill by doing that. And then at the same time, it continues to put me in unique places in this industry to be helpful, and drive me to new opportunities. So I really it's a full circle game of just in service to others, supports my own efforts, and I just keep doing that playbook.
So, let me ask you for some strategy.
Yeah.
A Let's just take a loan originator, right? He's
Yep.
I gosh, there's a lot that are obviously call center like or
Sure.
style, and then there's some that are pure self gen, some
Yep.
hybrid. But let's take a self gen type, since I think that's the majority of the listeners. What kind of a content strategy do they put out there? Is it one that goes direct to consumer, or is it one that goes more to the realtor,
Yeah.
or a referral partner of some sort,
Yep.
or is it both at the same time? Can you achieve that?
So to run this down simplistically, you did the right thing in your describing the question. Define your audience of who you want to get connected to and who you want to influence. And so it can absolutely be customers, like my past customers, like stay connected to my past customers and attract new customers, and realtor connections and realtor like referral networks, 100%. But when you're going to make a video or a piece of content, make sure it's very clear who you're addressing it towards. And then from there, what are their problems and what are your solutions? And so let me even go back even fun and this is going to sound even funnier. But most people that jump into I need to make content to stay relevant have missed the first step entirely. Entirely. Which is they're not connected to any people at all. They're not connected to anyone. All of their past customers are not connected to them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They're not connected to them. The top agents in the community, they're not following them. They're not connected to them. And so they're going to make content for nobody. It's a problem. And the real work of social is not in content creation, which is effortful and hard, but it's actually in the work to make sure that the community around you is already there, so that when you start talking, you can you show up. Now, there's other ways that you can leverage email distribution and text there's other ways to get your content in front of people. But number one is you got to be investing in a community, which means you need to be finding these people, connecting with them on the multiple platforms, and then when they're talking on those platforms, you need to be hanging out with them, commenting. Like you need to be in that space, not creepy, not weird, not the second they post, you're like, great listing. But like you need to be like living in that digital community with them. And then when you talk, what are the issues they're facing today? So like let's just spitball for 2 seconds, right? What are customers facing today? Lack of inventory, rates that they think are too high, like, affordability,
Lots of debt.
debt. Like they're facing massive amounts of issues. Well, what are some solutions loan officers have for those issues? Down payment assistance, buy downs, concessions, gifts. What do we have that they don't know about? I mean, God,
Yeah.
some of them don't know they can put less than 20% down. So like what do we have that we can start equipping them, maybe their credit's binged up. Maybe they need to get on a debt consolidation. Maybe they need to get on a budget to pay off debt. Like, you know how to do that. You've been coaching customers to do this forever. In fact, really great loan officers that have been in the industry a couple of years are good at this kind of conversation. So what kind of content to make? Like that kind, because it'll help them. And then for realtors, what are they dealing with that's their pain points? Similar stuff for sure. But how can you help them? Do you have strategies that can help them get new clients, new ways to think about stuff, new ways to prospect? Do they need to do video and content? Maybe some collaboration. What do they need to know about the loan world today to help them navigate what's going on? Is it as bad as they think it is? Should they believe the news? Man, it just goes on and on. And once people find their passion, like what they're really excited about, it's even easier for them to find content strategy, because then they can layer their content strategy on their passion, and then they never run out of things to talk about.
Yeah.
But here's the chaos of this, though. Here's the craziness of this. No one cares. This is what's so wild about this that blew my mind when I landed on this, and I believe this is a core truth. That people may disagree, but when you and I go into open houses to meet an agent for the first time, what do we expect to happen? Walking into an agent first time, never met this agent before. Are we getting a loan?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no. Gotta create a relationship. Gotta build.
We're getting nothing, right? We're just like, we're popping by. We've never met them. Maybe you know, hey, I've heard about you. I wanted to meet you, and whatever we're saying, right? But we know we're not getting a deal. We know we're not, But on video, we have the complete like backwards perspective. It's like, oh, my views, we've only got 200 views, and I'm like, yeah, but that's an impression. You made an impression. How many impressions do you think you have to have before you get connection? It's not one.
Yeah.
So there's a perspective missing too for people. They're like, well, I showed up one day, I did some videos, Alec, and it didn't work. And I'm like, I had to call on Don Abrams 17 times a week for him to know my name. He never, I had to call this guy and go into every open house he had for 6 months before he was like, who are you again?
Yeah.
So one video didn't work for you? Like, pay attention to how the world works. But these impressions are so powerful, because over time, they're like, man, this guy just keeps showing up. This guy's positive, has solutions. I didn't watch any of his videos. I get all the time, like, Alec, I feel like I know you. I'm like, oh, did you watch my videos? Like, no, not really. Like, amazing. So
it is amazing.
But that's the perspective in the game for anybody out here, is to understand that these tools are really made to increase human connection and frequency, not to just like break the rule book. It's still a relationship game. People still do business with people they like, know, and trust. But content now lets you build that bridge faster than just calling them once a week and trying to find them in open houses.
Yeah. All right. I want to get to AI, only because I know how heavy you guys are into that, and probably one of the better systems out there. But before I do, and I usually ask this question later, but I want to ask it now because I think it's going to go fit in perfect with everything you're talking about. And then we're going to talk about AI. So if I could pick you up right now and drop you off somewhere in America where you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And you have all the knowledge you have, but you don't have a lot of money.
Yep.
You're just kind of like, hey, I have to make this work. Otherwise I won't be able to pay my rent or whatever, right? Undercover Millionaire or whatever that show was, right? Same kind of thing. How do you start? What do you do? How do you get going?
So I have a lot more courage now than 23-year-old Alec did back when I was, terrified of getting rejected from realtors. So I'll answer it with, the current level of courage. But the playbook is, in my opinion, the playbook's still the same. The top 100 agents in this market that I can drive around to are referring business to somebody. They have people they like, know, and trust. And I need to become one of those people as fast as humanly possible. Now, am I allowed to tap my network of friends and family, or I just have to go after agents?
You don't
100%?
know anybody there, no.
Yeah, I have no connections. Great. I have one license in this state. I can't do loans in other states. I love this.
And you can't come back and visit your family until after you've closed 100
until after
loans.
I do something. So these top 100 agents have influence, and they're doing business today. And so I need to find a way to get them to know, like, and trust me as fast as humanly possible, which is a content and connection or impression game. So non-negotiables previews, caravans, and open houses. I have to be at every single one that I can, ranked by the top people down. Now, of course, I can do my research, right? Who are the top people? Who are they using? Who's my competition? Is the top agent like getting all their business from Rocket, and that's how they do all the real estate, and they're never going to give me a deal? Like, do your work, find who the real people are, get your list, one to whatever, and I would go. That would be face to face would be a non-negotiable. I'd be at all the networking events that I could find, and I'd be targeting those people. I'd put them all on a mailing list, and I make sure they get something physical from me every month in the mail. Physical to their office. It'd be something that would draw their attention, be clever, be interesting, be useful. I'd mail stuff in tubes. I would do things that would be a little wacky because I want them. I got to make an impression. I don't have time. Then I'd follow them all on every social media platform. I'd find them all like a crazy stalker. And I would make sure that when they're posting, I'm engaging appropriately, not like a creep, but appropriately on their content to make sure that now I'm getting another impression in front of them. I would be putting out daily pieces of content that I feel like could help them to make sure that if there's a chance they see me there, I get another impression. And then I as quickly as possible start to build a network of the title and escrow people around me because they know everything that's going on in the market. And they would be the people I would be taking to lunch first to ask intel. Who are these people? What are they like? Who are they? Who do they use today? And try to get as much profiling on everybody I can as fast as I can. And then I would start with my reasons to call. And reasons to call is what I've got through in order to like get over my BS fear of cold calling people. I found that if you actually have a reason to call somebody, you can ring them up without getting distracted and freaked out. And there's a whole list of reasons to call. Product niches, they have a listing you feel like you could help with. And then you got to fill your phone, you got to fill your day with outreach to make another impression. And if you're violently active on all these strategies, making content every day, face to face as much as possible, reasons to call appropriately every 1 to 2 weeks, maybe once a month, you're networking with title and escrow and going to events. The last thing I'd probably do is try to host some kind of event myself. So I love local events, and I think the range, I'd probably do a first time homebuyer one and a social media for realtors one. And I would invite all the realtors in to learn about social media. Now, they might not ever want to come. They might think that's nice, but it's another reason to call where I'm making an impression.
And follow
And
up,
I
right?
think within 4 to 6 months, I would crack a couple agents open. And then from there, the phase 2 is just leveraging relationships. Who does that agent know that they can refer me to warmly, so I don't have to, and I could make another connection and another connection. And then I'd probably be hiring somebody as fast as humanly possible to take the workload off of the administration and the processing, so that I could keep my origination activities super high.
It's funny you said something that I actually forgot that I did, that I highly recommend to people. You said that you would go to your title and escrow people. And I remember years ago, he's still one of my all-time best friends now is Derek Graham. Um, we would go, we did a lot. He introduced me to so many people.
Yeah,
So we would go golfing.
yeah,
He would bring, you know, 2 realtors or 1 realtor, and I'd bring 1 realtor, or he'd bring 2 and I'd bring none. And we'd introduce back and forth to each other. A lot of
yep,
times he'd set up lunches and he'd invite me to come along. So I think a real great strategy is contact your title rep whose job is to know every single one of these people. And he can decide like who you should be paired with as well. Cause sometimes there is a pairing that comes along. Right. And just take you out to lunch. I think that's a
yeah.
great way to go.
DJ Bibb. DJ Bibb was he got into title the same time I got into lending, and we were both young guns running around. And I was like, "Who do you know?" And he's like, "Who do you know?" And we'd go out and do open houses together, and you try to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah. And then the content strategy of, having daily videos, I think is a great idea. Having some sort of a social media type of a, uh, what do you call it? An event for realtors, whether they come or don't come, you still have a reason to call, and you have a follow up as well. Cause now you should record that, right? Can I send you something or the best things that came out of this session? And now
Exactly.
you can absolutely reach a million other people with that. And it's that
Yeah,
easy, you guys.
I forgot the last thing that I tell people to do that I would do today. Well, I would do two things. And this is a little more sophisticated, but if it gives somebody an idea and a spark to try something, I think these are game changers. The first is I would do a monthly podcast where I interviewed small business owners in the community that I was dropped into about what they do, how they did it, how they start, what's their, who are they and what do they serve, whether they're restaurateurs or clothiers or whoever they are. And then I would distribute that podcast and all the social stuff because that guy or gal that's the business owner, they're going to share that with their network too. And it's going to push my brand out further to who they are.
Yeah.
And then I think the most slept on thing right now that is very low budget and easy to accomplish are on demand webinars. And here's what I mean specifically. So you could make a first time home buyer webinar, a VA, a webinar for VA, and a webinar for like renovation loans that you'd have to put a little money behind to produce an actual webinar, but it's not a lot. It's not what people think. And then you can run ads on social down to the most minute keywords that cost you very, very little money. So, first time home buyers in Mission Viejo, looking to buy in Mission Viejo, and my webinar would pop up for people that are searching for that little tiny world. And so running very targeted ads towards consumers with a very solid webinar experience that could plumb right into your CRM where you can get alerts that people are watching or signed up is such a lead magnet that people, and it costs so little because all you have to do is get on ChatGPT and start asking questions about like, how do I target certain niche markets and what words do I use to really minimize my spend? So I'm not searching for buying a home loan in California, which is like good freaking luck, but I'm like in this small neighborhood, like you could actually put keywords down to the neighborhood, the port streets in Newport Beach, and then that's the audience you're putting your ad in front of. So your budget doesn't have to be big. I mean, if you're trying to break into realtor relationships, bringing someone a buyer is probably the easiest way to do it and probably one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
But I would 100% have my podcast and my little ad strategy running as fast as humanly possible so I can generate some consumer direct leads.
What is a good like ad spend for something like that?
Couple $100
What
a
should
month.
be how much?
Couple $100 a month.
Okay. That's
it's even funnier. Like, let's say I'm being tactical here, but let's say there's a community where how agents have farms at times, and so this agent farms this particular community, and I see them there all the time, and I want to get in with this agent. I would run this webinar down to that community level, and that would maybe cost me $5 to $20 a month. I mean, very little, depending on who's searching for that. But the second I get some of those leads, I can bring it in and give it to that person in that community, and I could crack the door wide open. So I might get that targeted with certain people, depending. Like Dawn, does a lot of business, but it's a lot on Balboa Island. It's a very small little community. So, it doesn't fit the loans that we have today that work, that well. But
yeah.
That would be 100% my strategy digitally on some of these targets.
Would you ever go to the referral partner, the realtor, for example, and say, I'm putting this together, I'm looking for somebody to partner with. Would you like to partner with me on this?
So it's funny you say that. I was a big proponent, and as I'm building relationship with agents, part of my strategy was called offer things of value. And it's not a RESPA thing for somebody who's listening to this. It just means like it was a way to leverage as a litmus test how my relationship's progressing with them. So Dino, I'd see you at the open house and go, hey Dino, I noticed you don't ever have open house flyers, man. Like finance flyers here. Would you ever want any? I can send you some examples. I think they're good. I think people like them when they go to a house. And you might look at me and be like, I absolutely do not want financing flyers from you. I don't want to feel any obligation to you, Alec. Thank you. So no. Or you might be like, yeah, I'll look at some. And then I'm like, oh, he might like me more than I thought. Like he might want to. So like your offering of like, hey, I'm going to do this. Would you ever want to collab with me? Is a great like thing of value to kind of explore what level of your relationship's at. Because if they say yes, oh hell yeah, man! Like you just got the ticket.
It's game on.
But if they say no, all that really means to me is they just don't know, trust, or like me enough at the moment to like take something from me that they might feel obligated to give back. So no harm done. But I love that. I love the strategy.
Yeah. So let's move on now because I really wanted to talk to you about the AI.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
Loan Depot, from what I hear on the street, you guys have put in like well over $100 million into building out your systems.
Yeah.
Um, I hear some pretty incredible things. And we don't need to get into so much of like what you guys are specifically doing, but I would like to hear like where you guys think it's going,
Yeah.
and also what does it mean for the industry?
So AI, early stage AI that I think we're in now is going to replace a lot of the administrative paper process, even though we're digital, of a mortgage. So, for example, AI is able today, and that doesn't mean it's fully implemented at mortgage companies, but it's able today to effectively nearly fully underwrite a file. Like it can calculate everything it needs to calculate. It can do all the math. It can do all the validations of that math against the guidelines. Like it's sophisticated enough to understand that this is a tax return and this is what the person makes and this is how to underwrite this to Fannie guidelines. Like it's there. It doesn't mean it's implemented at mortgage companies, but that's coming. And so our the process of requesting a piece of documentation, submitting it, waiting on a turn time, having it cleared is going to do this. That's great news for originators who understand that their value is not in file management. Their value's in relationships and driving leads / loans. But that is absolutely terrifying to loan officers who are like, I'm the product matrix guru. And, because that's coming for you. It's gonna do that stuff faster and better. Um, And so that's going to bring a lot of efficiency, a lot of price opportunity, like lowering cost of fund, like cost of loans, to produce loans. But where it's going to bleed into the loan officer side, which I'm excited about, I think it's a really good thing, is it's going to become everyone's going to have an assistant. Everyone's going to have a full-on AI assistant that you can ask to go do whatever you want. So all the follow-up we do as originators, all of the document collection and reminders, all that stuff's going to be handled by an AI assistant at some point in the very near future, which is cool because you could sit down with your AI assistant and go, I need you to do these things today. And it will email on your behalf and it will text on your behalf and it will go get things for you.
And do you think there's any fear for a loan officer?
Tons, tons of fear. But here's the here's how I view it. And so I don't know. I mean, everyone has to find their own positioning on this. I know a lot of loan officers who think that, I got 2-3 years left before they take out all the loan officers and kill us all and all that stuff. People do business with people they like, know, and trust. And so with a purchase, let's just stay on the purchase side for a second.
Yeah.
You and I know there's a lot of moving parts on a purchase. It's not as simple as just a rate and term refinance. Are they going to trust a machine to give them the right advice? Or are they going to trust a person? And at some level, that's where people get really nervous because they go, well, they're going to trust the machine. And okay, well, who's driving the machine? Where's the accountability? If something breaks, who fixes my problem? And again, I think it goes back to in this kind of consultative process, it's going to fall back on a person. And I don't think it's going to fall back on a processor or an underwriter. I think it's going to fall back on a consultant. So I think that it's very real that AI is going to continue to push towards the front of a sales transaction. I think it's very real that people are going to go to ChatGPT and ask mortgage questions and find out what's right for them. But you and I both know that today, like literally today, it doesn't do the job. You can't go talk to ChatGPT and get an underwrite and get a qualification and find out what you can afford. It doesn't ask the right questions. Now it may ask the right questions in the future, but it doesn't today. Like how long you're going to live there, and like it's not programmed to think like that. It's just very reactive. It's not proactive.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of as good as the questions you ask it. But I'm in AI every single day, using it both with Copilot and Microsoft and ChatGPT. And sometimes it's just flat out wrong. And I'm like, that's not right. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, and then it literally says like, my bad. Like I ask it like, hey, you know, that's not right. Right. And they're like, you're correct. My fault. And I'm like, you don't get to be wrong. But like, cause people here take this at face value.
It
So
said, "Oh snap" to me
yeah,
recently
yeah.
when I said it was wrong.
I firmly believe that AI is going to allow originators to scale higher levels of production. That's my belief today. I think it's going to allow someone like you or any originator out there to go out and do more business with less human resources and scale, because it's going to pick up the parts of our business that are file heavy and paper heavy and tracking documents and following up. And that'll let you do what you do best, which is drive relationships, have real quality consultations, and then look, I still think it's a nurse doctor thing.
Yeah.
I think AI is going to operate a lot like a nurse, and then like, you know, check my vitals, check my stuff, make sure things are good, and then I still want to talk to the doctor when she walks in because I need her to tell me like what's best for my diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I don't think I don't put limits on AI, like it'll never get there. I think that's kind of ignorant. But if you're worried about it, the best thing you can do is go build deeper and better relationships right now. That's what you can do.
So we talked, we stuck to the purchase market, and I 100% agree with you. What about the refinance market?
So
And
here's
and
how
let
I
me
view it.
preface with, like, I've never been a refinance guy.
I know.
Obviously, when my own clients, when the rates drop, I redo my clients and their friends when they refer, but I've never once advertised, and gotten that huge influx during that period of time. And it's fine. I've just never been that guy. But this last time around, I will say that I remember a couple times, even like my clients that trust me, like me, the whole bit, right? It's like
Yep.
they saw something from Better, and they told me what they were getting. I was like, impossible, and then they called me back. I said, just call me back when either it doesn't work or when it does, and tell me how the experience was. And they actually said it was pretty good. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I can't believe this. Like, I mean, they did it for practically what I would have done for free if I did that. So I can't help but wonder, first of all, if I'm an originator, and I'm not originating anymore, but if I was originating, I'd be doubling down on the purchase industry, be
Yes.
doubling down on those relationships and making them so damn tight that you just can't shake it. But on the refinance game, I
Yep.
kind of have to wonder where that's going to end up, right? Because there's not as much emotion in the refinance as there is in the purchase. And a lot of times, like I remember, when I sold myself, especially to the listing agent, when my clients made an offer, I'd do a video, and I'd mention all of their fears in my
Yep.
video. And one of them was, and let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a purchase guy. I do over 100 million in volume. And so I'm not a refinance guy. Like I'd say that we're
Yep.
not a refinance shop. And more importantly, I have to tell you that I understand the purchase game, and I understand the emotional side of it. So, I can 100% with confidence tell you that my clients will not get squirrely on you. Your clients will never have an issue because we will always do what we say, right? And I'd have this little pitch, and that's emotion. Refinances, what do you think?
Well, let's first put cost to produce to the side for a second and say all things are equal. Like you and I have the same rates, right? I'm LoanDepot, you're better. We have the same rates. The customer is going to go to whoever gets their attention and stays top of mind. So if that's a loan officer, then you did a great job. You stayed top of mind, which is why I also feel like content strategy as a CRM is critically important, because if you're not in their headspace every day, they do see a shiny object and click on it, and then they're off down the path. So taking cost to produce out and assuming we all have the same rates as anybody else, it's all a content and awareness game. So a loan officer out there, content and awareness, content and awareness. Stay top of mind, or they're gonna get distracted by an ad and they're gonna click and they're gonna be gone. But if they see you every day, when they see the ad, they're gonna call you. I believe that's a game we can play. But now the other thing is that things aren't always created equal, and some companies are losing money, and so they have teaser rates, or they want to get MSRs, and so they're putting their rates super low. And look, I do a lot. I have a lot of friends in the broker community, And I watch what happens on the broker community and on the wholesale investors. There's people that are in the market, out of the market. There's people coming in, like different investors are doing different things all the time. It's just it's wacky. So, there is like a platform, potential issue because things aren't always fair, and sometimes pricings someone finds this deal and you can't match it and all that stuff. But that's not really in our control unless we are, trying to figure out how to make our cost of funds better, and that's your job. Otherwise, as an originator, it's kind of like, well, what is in my control? Content and awareness. I can farm them back. And I'll tell you, some of the opportunity out there that's coming in this next mini to modest refinance wave that we're going to have. We just never know when. We're just sitting here like getting our legs cut every day, but we all know that it's going to happen. Just the timing is the timing. It's an opportunity for somebody to take advantage of it. Maybe they can bring their kid into the game and help them do refinances. They can hire a junior and really they can take their PA who's been struggling and make them a loan officer and do some refis and then maybe back to a PA. There's a lot of ways to cut and slice it. But I think that I think everyone should figure out how to take advantage of it to some degree. But I will say this, you're 100% right. The purchase world is how you make a sustainable career. That's how you carve out. So back to AI to kind of bring the full circle thing here. Do I think at some point that AI can just do my refi for me? 100%. Do I want them to use my AI to do the refi or somebody else's? Mine. So it's still a content and awareness game, but they can just text me and my AI can take over and refinance them.
Yeah.
So I think that's coming. I think an AI is going to act like an administrative assistant / production assistant / junior for unlicensed junior loan officer for salespeople.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I've been hearing a lot about LoanDepot and some of the systems you guys have. And man, I got to say, it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. I think that there's a lot of great companies with great systems too, and they're all trying to solve the same problems: create ease, create less friction. Like I've been super impressed by Rocket and UWM's platform. I mean, yeah, they're trying to create ease, reduce friction, reduce costs, and that's the responsibility of any mortgage company is
Yeah.
to take the money they're making. The reason you work for any company or you support a certain brokerage is because you hope that they're taking some of the profit that they're getting from you and reinvesting it into tools to make your life better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we all hope for. And if they don't, we people pick up their shoes and go to another place they believe in. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's how it works.
So on the broker side, right, when I'm out recruiting or giving my talks or whatever it is, I do use LoanDepot a lot in my analogies. Uh, and I always say that it's like, look, and correct me if I'm wrong. I always say you guys have dropped over 100 million, right? I heard
Yep.
Better has dropped over 100 million. Rocket. I said, so
Tons.
let them, because by the time I'm done with the AI that I'm building, I'm like, okay, maybe around 2 million. And I think I'm like, so, but then it's like, doesn't even compare to 100 million. Like, doesn't even compare. So I'm not even going to try and compete because I can't win. You guys are too good. I will lose. I've been using this analogy for a long time, though, even before AI. I'm like, I can never compete with LoanDepot because if I go to the bathroom and I don't answer a call, I lose. At LoanDepot, somebody's always answering the call, no matter what. Like that's what I said in the old days. Now with the AI, I said, but here's the difference. A company like LoanDepot or Rocket, the two that I always use, has to do this many loans in the US just to break even. I go, I have to do this many just in my
Yep.
county to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
So stop trying to compete with them and just focus. And this is just advice to any originator out there. Just
So good.
focus on your relationships, like we've been talking about today, and focus on how you're going to stay connected and top of mind all the time. And I did hear some of your video today, and you talked about CRM. So, and before actually, I got to ask you, we've been running pretty long, which I'm cool
Here,
with. I
baby.
just want to make sure you don't have a hard stop.
No,
You're
keep
good?
going.
All right, good. Because this is good stuff, right? So let's talk about a CRM
Yeah.
because I got to tell you, man, it is probably the hardest thing in the world to get somebody to use properly. And I don't even get it. Like, I just don't get it. Like, why do you struggle using a CRM? That should be the life like line of your business, right? So, can you give somebody some quick advice on, how and why, how to use a CRM, right, properly, and why?
Well, look, brother, let's first start with one of the points we made earlier. Everything's about execution. And you're right. People don't execute with post closing strategies very well. And they should listen to you talk about your gifting program and just copy it. But if your intent is to stay relevant and connected to somebody, like that's my intent. I do a loan for you and I want to stay connected and relevant with you for as long as possible. In fact, I want to be so relevant to you that I get future business, not only like your business, but referrals from you, because I'm so top of mind that when your friend or sister or brother goes to buy a house, you're like, you got to call Alec. So if that's my intent, then I need to build a system. You said this early on, systems are critical, where I'm held accountable to do the shit I know I'm supposed to do. CRM is just an accountability tool. Now, yes, it can do some things for you, but to do those things, you have to set it up to do them. We're not at a place where you could go, CRM GPT and say, please make this happen every month. So it's just a tool that's more sophisticated than an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so if someone says to me, it's too complicated, boo-hoo, you suck. And I don't have much empathy for you, because clearly staying in touch with people, you don't really care. You say I'm relational, and then it's bullshit. So if it's really something that you believe in your heart as critically important, dude, brother, I used to have an ACT database. It sucked ass. I used to print out labels on a manual label freaking printer and hand stick them to newsletters that I bought with my stupid face on the back. Like, I don't, what do you want me to cry because you can't figure out how to push buttons when you have all of human knowledge in your pocket? Just
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah. Stop it.
Learn the system, Google and YouTube the tutorials, spend the time, because once you do the work, then all your intention of staying in contact, all the reminders are there, all the to-dos are there, all the anniversaries are there, all the kids' names and birthdays are there, all of the campaigns are there. Oh, I need my marketing company to write campaigns for me. You suck. Do you think your customer wants a marketing campaign from Alec, the CMO? Absolutely freaking not. They
Yeah.
want you to tell them what's going on and to share about yourself and to stay connected and to give them things that could help them this month, not spring cleaning tips 2025. So
It's you.
it's like, huh?
It's you. It's be real. Be
Yeah.
real with who you are. Dress the way you normally would dress.
Yes.
Talk the way you would normally talk, because
Yes.
that's what attracted them to start with.
Yes.
I remember I used to wear a suit every day.
Yeah.
And then I started making a little bit of money, and I kind of like, okay, I no more tie, and then it was just a sports coat, and then it was just slacks and nice shirt, and then it was like, well, Tommy Bahama was big back then, so Tommy
Yeah, bro.
Bahama
I hear
shirt,
you.
and then shorts, and now it's like, check it out. This is this is me every single day
Rocking it.
with flip flops.
Rocking it.
Yeah, I mean, who cares? And it's great because I'll tell you one actual really funny thing that happened is I had clients come to the office, and I was just like this, and the husband turns to the wife. He's like, "I told you I didn't need to dress up," and we ended up becoming great friends
That's
because
so good.
I was just like them. This is who they really are, right?
Yep.
And I think I learned that a long time ago. For example, I'll give you one quick thing. I had a loan officer that was always so stuffy. He wanted to be so professional about everything,
Yep.
and his language, his persona, and it was boring. Nobody liked him because he wasn't himself. He had no like personality to express or show to the people. So,
Yep.
gosh, you guys, like, show your personality, be yourself. You will, like attracts like.
Yeah, I mean, you want a personal. So I used to tell people, um, one of your pieces of content that you send out to your referral partners that you're prospecting and your past clients should be a personal newsletter every quarter. And people would be like, a personal newsletter? Like, why? Like, this is a professional relationship. Why would I send a personal newsletter? And I'm like, well, you tell me you want to be relational. You tell me that you actually care to be in relationship to people. So send them something that's going on in your life. You don't have to tell them about your bowel movements, but something. And I used to, because like, I mean, here's how I'd frame it. The customers that worked for me and let me do their loan, and the realtors that referred me business were funding my entire lifestyle.
Yeah.
They're supporting me through my marriage, getting married. They supported me through my buying my first house, buying my first car. Like, they were changing my life in real time. And so I would send out a personal newsletter about what's going on. And I talked about my first house that I bought and said, thank you for helping me do this. And when I got married, I shared that. I was going on my honeymoon. Thank you. And I would just share and thank and be full of gratitude, because the people were transforming my life by choosing me to do their loan and referring me
Yeah.
customers. So yeah, did some realtors look at that and be like, I'm never sending this guy a deal at all. This guy's a weirdo. Sure. But I don't need 100 of them to give me a deal.
Yeah.
I need like 4 good relationships to do 100 million. Like,
Yeah.
and then some modest relationships that I get some deals. I don't get all the bit, so yeah, man. I mean, I think that CRM post-closing stuff, we make so much excuses about it. I'm not technical enough. I don't know how to deal with this technology. And it's like, just stop with the excuses and figure out what your intention is, and then solve that by growing.
Hmm. Yeah. I'll tell you, I'll share something else that I've always done. Um, we're trying to figure out how to implement it right now with the AI. It spent a lot of money on Salesforce. The adoption was terrible. Now, granted,
Sure.
Salesforce is it's difficult.
Yeah.
So we abandoned it, and now with AI, we're trying to do a CRM that's a little bit just easier,
Yeah.
and figure maybe it'll have more adoption, and use the AI that we're building to actually do the rest, right? So this is how I've structured it for years, and I think it's brilliant. Hopefully you guys do too. This is really
I
like
love it.
part of the secret sauce, right? So we used to have, just like when you go to Amazon, right? You don't buy something if it's got 3 stars or 2 stars, or you want to buy something that's higher. So we use the star system, and other people use ABCD, right? We used to, then we switched to stars, because that's kind of like, you get out of Uber, it's a star system, right?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
So here's how it works. Every client you get starts off as a 3, which is average. If it funds and you like them, they stay a 3. If you don't like them, they drop down to a 2. And I shouldn't say that. If there was something difficult about them,
No, look, I know what you meant. We don't get along with everybody. I
right?
totally get it.
They complain about stuff, they bargain a little too much, whatever. And
Yeah.
you're like, it's a credit report, like,
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't help you with that. I mean, that it is what it is, right? But you're a 2. A 3 is still great. You like 3s. A 4, you can only become a 4 one of 2 ways. Either they come back to you and do a refinance, or they're a person of influence. So they
Okay.
share a lot of the gifts that you gave them throughout the
Yeah.
process on social media, right? They posted the review that they gave you, right? Or the other one is like, I had a sergeant in the sheriff's department a long time ago. Dude, like, person of influence. I used to get phone calls all the time, just say, "Hey, Sarge told me to call you. You'll take care of me." It was Sarge told me to call you. It's like, okay, right? Like, that's a person of influence. So that's how you become a 4 star. A 5 star is only one way. You have to give us a referral. If you don't give us a referral that
Yep. I
closed
love
and
it.
we made money on you, then you cannot be a 5 star. And then
Love it.
a couple years ago, we added the coveted 6 star. The
Okay.
only way you can be a 6 star is if you're a client and you referred us enough business where we've made $50,000 off of you, not off
Jeez.
of your loans, but off of your referrals, then you're a 6 star. If you're a realtor or financial planner or something, we have to have made $100,000 on you. If we have, then you're a 6 star. And I kind of relate it to the 6 star is the black card holder in Amex, right? The
Yeah.
5 star
Yeah.
is
You want to make
the,
sure that
the
they're.
platinum card, right? Gold
Yep.
card, and then so on and so on. And you don't even get a card if you're under the green color. so so having something like that is really valuable, because the day will come where your database grows. Hopefully your database grows too big, and then you have to start making some decisions, because you can't just spend money on everybody. Otherwise, you're
Yep.
spending tens of thousands of dollars every time, right?
Yeah.
Or the way Amex does it is they spend a lot of money on the black card holders, still a lot of money and good on the platinum, right? And they spend less and less and less. And that's because they know their demographic. They know who they're going to make the most amount of money on. So 6 star, yeah, I mean, whatever. If I know that their entire family loves Disney, then shoot, man, they're all going to Disney. Now, I'm lucky because I've done a ton of Disney loans. So I just call up my buddies from Disney and
So
they get
good.
them in for free. But I mean, you should do whatever it takes for a 6 star if you've made 50 grand on them or 100 grand on them, right?
It's
But
great. It's a
doing
great
this,
system,
you
dude.
can start segmenting your marketing a little bit
Yep.
on how to market to each one, right? And how often, and which one deserves a phone call as opposed to a text message or a nicely handwritten card with true authentic meaning
Yep.
versus a spring cleaning newsletter, right? That you should never do, by the way, but you know
Right.
what I mean. So anyways, I listen, man. I'm gonna call this here because it's been going on for a long time. But I really appreciate everything, and I'm not letting you go because there's always the last questions that I love to ask, and that's it. Number one, what is your favorite book?
Right now, it's Who Moved My Cheese, which is a stupid, fantastic book. It's so short, but it's a parable on these two mice who are in a maze, and one day they know where all the cheese is every day, and the next one day they show up and their cheese is gone, and they don't know what to do. And it talks about, and it's such a great story to our lives and mortgage lending because the cheese is always being moved. The goalposts are always being moved. You think you have it figured out, and the realtors you're working for retire. You go, oh no. So it's a great way to tackle problems in the world. Is just realizing that your cheese is going to get moved, and what do you do?
So, who moved my cheese?
Who moved my cheese?
All right, cool. I'm gonna pick that one up. And then, what about your favorite quote?
You will be far less concerned with what other people think about you when you realize how seldom they do.
That's great.
It, I spent so much time. It's David Foster Wallace, Infinite Jest. I have so much time um, talking to people about content strategy and getting on social because I'm super passionate about it. That I get the inevitable. I don't like what I look like and sound like. I feel like an imposter. What if, all the bullshit. And I'm like, they're not thinking about you, dude. So
Yeah,
just use that to be free, not to be imprisoned.
yeah. Do you know who said that quote?
David Foster Wallace,
All
book
right,
Infinite Jest.
I love that one. I'm gonna start using it. Dude, thank you so much, man. I mean,
This is a
talk
blast,
about
dude.
like action pack. Like you just had it filled the whole way with such good just advice for people. And I know there's a lot of people out there right now, man, that are struggling, So
Yeah,
we talked about 2008, and to a lot of people, it's the same thing.
yeah,
I'm telling you right now, okay, maybe logistically business is worse, but I'm telling you, there's nothing worse than your business fails and the cost, the value of your home drops to half. I mean, when all of that happens combined, it's way worse of a feeling than what you're feeling now. And then one thing I said earlier, that remember, like, it doesn't matter what the market is. There's always somebody that's crushing it. Just be that person. Just be
yep.
that person always. Alec, dude, you've been great over the years. I mean, I wish we had stayed in contact, and I hope we do now. But I've been watching you throughout, and just watching your journey. It's fun to watch. It's great to see that. I mean, it looks like you've been really successful. And I say looks because, right, because social media, you never really know what's happening
It's
behind the
true.
scenes, but you seem happy. You give great advice. I loved having you on here, so thank you.
Thanks, dude. Thanks for doing this, man. My pleasure. Thank you.
So, guys, we are here to get you primed for what's coming because Alec actually mentioned it earlier, right? Like there is a mini, maybe modest, maybe a lot bigger of a refinance boom coming. So get your shit in order because it's coming. And if you don't, you're going to miss out on a great opportunity. So remember, we're here to educate you and teach you from the best of everybody in the industry. So we hope you subscribe. We hope you share this with your friends, and we hope to see you next time.